For spine-chilling true stories revealed, sinister secrets of the haunted and cursed unexplained, Sarah was just trying to keep her family afloat. Living in a quaint suburb of her Midwestern town, the 35-year-old single mother worked a low-paying job as a receptionist, balancing her evenings between her two children, 10-year-old Julie and 7-year-old Ethan. Their modest home, once a dream, began to trap her in a suffocating grip. It all started innocently enough. Flickering shadows danced against the walls, and muffled whispers echoed through the dim hallways. She told herself it was just fatigue, a trick of her tired mind, but when Julie and Ethan started talking about their imaginary friend, Sarah's heart raced with fear. "He's nice, Mommy. He plays with us," they chimed excitedly. The gleam in their eyes sent shivers down her spine. She felt a weight settle on her chest, an instinctual dread. Toys went missing, only to turn up in bizarre places: a drawing in the shoe, favorite toys hiding in the kitchen pantry. Each passing day thickened the suspense. With every clump of darkness they passed on their nightly walks to bed. Turning to research, Sarah uncovered the history of their house. Its previous owner, a beloved community leader, vanished without a trace. Dread soaked into the walls. The neighbors exchanged nervous glances, their warmth replaced by cold evasiveness, leaving Sarah feeling invisible. A visit to local law enforcement yielded ridicule. "Just stress," they scoffed. If only they knew she was no paranoid mother. No, something was watching her family, lurking just beyond the corners of their lives. Then, one stormy night, the atmosphere turned oppressive. "Have you seen your friend?" Sarah naively asked, hoping to uncover more about this unseen presence. The children replied too casually, "He's just outside." A prickle of ice shot through her veins. Supernatural shadows danced menacingly across the walls. Thunder crashed, and suddenly she heard the distinct sound of scraping from the living room. Slow and deliberate, she stepped carefully into the darkened room, her heart pounding. The air thickened. Furniture seemed to shiver, as if mocking her fear. An inkling of laughter, distorted and foreign, filled her ears. Twisted giggles mixed with desperate whispers. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest. Fear gripped her as paintings on the wall contorted, revealing twisted faces frozen in anguish, trapped in a nightmare. Panic surged. She would protect her kids at any cost, but the shadows rolled around her, confining her in wicked embrace. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. A sudden rush of adrenaline launched her into action. She had to check on her kids. As she turned, the door slammed shut behind her, a forceful reminder of the horror this house held. Whispered secrets swirled like smoke, tightening their grip around her, stitching her to a dark legacy that could tear apart her family forever. Fear tinged with desperation fueled every breath, rendering her frozen, standing on the threshold. What awaited them on the other side? The truth behind their friend was waiting, lurking in the shadows, and may just shatter everything they knew. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through Sarah's very bones. Her heart raced, the sound rattling her insides like a frightened bird trapped in a cage. She stood rooted to the spot, her breath shallow, eyes wide with rising panic. The living room felt different now, charged with an energy that dulled her senses and sharpened her fears all at once. "Mommy?" Julie's voice cut through the tension, high-pitched and trembling. The darkness between them swallowed the softness of her daughter's words. Sarah whipped around, desperate to find her, but the shadows hid her children from view. With the storm outside raging, thunder boomed overhead, drowning out any semblance of comfort within those walls. "Ethan! Julie!" she called, her voice wavering, straining against the weight of the unseen terror. From the corner of the room, laughter erupted, twisted, sickly sweet, like rotten fruit. "Play with us, Mommy. It's fun." The voice came, a raspy imitation of her children's innocent chirp. It was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. Clenching her fists, Sarah fought the primal urge to flee. She had to find Julie and Ethan. They needed her. She took a tentative step into the murky gloom, feeling her way forward as if the darkness might swallow her whole. "Where are you?" Her voice was stronger now, fueled by fierce protectiveness. Silence swallowed her words, and the breath that followed felt like ice in her lungs. Suddenly, the patter of tiny feet resounded, sending a jolt of terror through her. "This way, Mommy." They sounded too close, too eager. Her pulse quickened as she spun towards the sound, heart racing with the primal urge to protect. But the shadows shifted, curling like grasping fingers around her ankles. "Don't be scared. We're just playing." The laughter rose again, now echoing everywhere and nowhere at once. It was wrong, detached as if coming from hollowed bones. The air felt thick as she edged further into the room, scanning for anything that resembled her children. In the dim light, she finally spotted movement, a fleeting glimpse of a small figure darting behind the sofa. "Ethan!" She called again, fear bubbling over. She stumbled forward, stumbling on the edge of a toy left carelessly on the floor. With the room still holding its secret, Sarah plummeted into the dark, landing on her knees, palms scraping against rough carpet. "Where are you?" She squinted into the void. Then, a voice, soft and sweet, "Come play with us." She froze. This was no game. Panic twisted in her gut. "No. You need to come to me," she yelled, desperate now, each second feeling like an eternity. She thought of her children's faces, their laughter innocent snatched away. Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind the couch, smaller than she remembered, pale and twisted. Joy turned to horror as she finally saw him, a grinning shadow of a boy with eyes that glowed unnaturally bright. "Mommy," Julie's voice trailed off, trailing the imaginary friend instead. "He's taking us to the fun place." Ice flooded Sarah's veins. The door. Her only route to escape. "Stop!" she cried, scrambling back to her feet, but the shadow boy turned, beckoning her with a crooked finger. An overwhelming sense of dread took hold. Was this just a phantom of her imagination? Or was this a warning, a manifestation of an evil entwined with their lives? She needed answers. She needed someone to believe her. As the shadows thickened, looming over her like a dark cloud of despair, Sarah sprinted for the door, desperate to break through. But what lay on the other side? Would it be refuge or further horrors? And just as she reached for the handle, it swung open, revealing a figure standing in the doorway, a familiar face missing its warmth. "Why did you leave us, Mommy?" came the whisper, cold and haunting. In that moment, terror gripped Sarah tight, leaving her paralyzed with the agonizing question, what had she awakened in her home? As her heart pounded mercilessly in her chest, she understood there was nowhere to run. Shadows closed in, murmuring secrets that chilled her to the marrow. The game was just beginning. What would she risk to save her children and herself? The figure in the doorway loomed, a grotesque echo of the nurturing love Sarah once knew. It was her own mother, or the remains of what had once been a loving parent, now twisted into something sinister. Her eyes were voids, hollows that seemed to suck in the light. "Why did you leave us, Mommy?" The words slithered across the room, tainting the air with a vile chill. Sarah stepped back instinctively, her breath hitching in her throat. She had only glimpsed that familiar face. Betrayal was etched deep into its features. Turning, she cast a frantic glance back toward the darkness where her children should be, but it felt like they were slipping further away, caught in a web of something sleek and malicious. "Mommy," Julie's voice echoed back, but it wasn't only Julie. It came layered, as whispers intertwined, "Come play," with every syllable. Shadows twisted and spun, forming grotesque shapes that lunged towards her, every movement too quick, too close. She turned again to the door, her only path to safety, but the night outside was a swirling abyss, with flashes of lightning illuminating unseen figures that danced just beyond her reach. "Mommy." The call was smoother now, a lullaby sung by countless lost souls. The darkness seemed to pulse, its rhythm syncing with her racing heart. She had to fight. She couldn't let this deception swallow her whole. "Get away from them!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw, laced with desperation. She lunged toward the door again, pushing past the shadow of her mother. Cold fingers brushed her shoulder, and she jerked, spinning around, fists clenched and ready. "Why do you resist?" The voice, sickly sweet, echoed from every corner of the room. "We just want to play forever." The walls vibrated with twisted laughter, an unnerving symphony of distorted childhood joy that sent her heart plummeting. Sweat dripped down her back. She couldn't let them see her fear. A sudden crash of thunder jolted her and, for just a moment, the room brightened. In that fleeting second, she glimpsed Julie's form just behind the couch again. "Mommy." The clarity of her voice broke through the cacophony. "Julie." "Ethan." Sarah cried, lunging for the sound, but the instant she reached out, the shadows surged forward, a thick blanket that smothered her. The laughter shifted, taking on a mocking tone. "Mommy doesn't want to play." She felt trapped, suffocated as a grinning shadow curled around her waist, yanking her back. "It's too late. You let us in." They whispered, voices more of an echo than an articulation, looping over and over with the haunting cadence of her own guilt. "No. I'll save my children." Sarah gasped, wrenching herself free of the phantom grasp, adrenaline wheels turning in her brain. But the shadows tightened, having tasted her resolve. Then, from the depths of the chaos, a small hand reached out, solid against her fingertips. "Help us, Mommy." It was Ethan's voice, not woven into the phantom laughter. The terror surged through her, a burning need to connect. "Hold on." She screamed, heart racing with newfound determination, fighting against the dark forces. Before she could process anything, Julie appeared, flickering in and out of the engulfing blackness. "This way. We have to go." Sarah surged forward into the tumult, drawn by her children's voices. Bound by love, thrusting herself against the suffocating nightmares, she lunged, crying out for her children, "I'm coming. I won't lose you." But the deeper she ventured into the darkness, the more foreign it became. Would those whispers reshape her thoughts? Would they steal her very soul? Just as she clawed toward the children, a blinding pain erupted in her chest, a last attempt to snatch her back into the shadows. She gasped, the shadows thickening, holding tight. And then she froze. In one instant of clarity, she realized, what was chasing her wasn't a creature, but her own haunted past returning to claim her. What would it cost to break free of her nightmares? How could she defeat something that was so entwined with her own being? In that moment of heartbreak and fear, she knew one thing: she had to find a way to face the monsters of her own making. Just then, a chilling silence enveloped them, and the walls of the house whispered a name, a long-forgotten secret that might unravel the very fabric of her reality. What awaited her on the other side of that revelation? Time seemed to warp as Sarah paused, teetering on the razor's edge of fear and determination. The name echoed around her, curling like smoke, but its source remained veiled. It pulsed in the air, heavy and sticky, beckoning her into the depths of despair. "Mommy." Ethan's voice snapped her back, reminding her of the real danger. She couldn't let them drown in this darkness, in the clutches of the past. She took a step forward, feeling a surge of warmth from the ethereal hand gripping hers. The figures swirled around her, their grotesque faces momentarily indistinct and malleable, a collage of every torment she'd ever felt. This wasn't just a nightmare, it was a hell born of her own regrets. "You don't have to listen," she shouted, forcing the words through clenched teeth. The laughter faded momentarily, and the shadows hesitated, drawn by the fierceness of her love. She felt the bond between them, the strength of a mother's defiance coursing through her veins. She turned in every direction, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Where are you?" she called out, her voice echoing through the oppressive gloom. The dark entities responded with twisted whispers that tangled her thoughts. "Let us play no," she roared, slicing through the cacophony. She remembered the softness of their leaves, Julie's laughter, Ethan's giggle. Those memories became her armor, a shield against the creeping terror. Then, out of the void, a chilling shape coalesced, her mother. Only it was deeper than just a silhouette, it was an embodiment of everything Sarah had lost and feared. "Join us." It beckoned, her voice dripping with faux tenderness, like poison disguised in honey. Sarah clenched her fists, unwilling to yield. "You're not my mother," she cried, the declaration sharp as glass. The image faltered for a moment, shadows flickering, revealing a glimpse of something almost human beneath. "I love you," the whisper coiled, warm and inviting, tugging at the strings of her heart. But Sarah knew love had been twisted into this nightmare. She saw through the facade now, the truth burning bright in her chest. "I love my children," she shouted, forcing the shadows back, their hold loosening like a frayed rope. "You can't have them." With that, an explosion of blue light erupted from her core, illuminating the choking darkness. Figures danced away, screaming in chorus, a wailing storm falling at the unquenched fire in Sarah's eyes. "Mommy!" Suddenly, the room shifted. With a loud crash, the wall behind her splintered, a violent crack splitting through the air. The dark forces recoiled, but she felt the children slipping away, their voices faint now, dissolving like dust in the wind. "Closer!" she shouted, her heart teetering as panic gripped her. The bond she felt, a tether to her children, threatened to snap. She grabbed the wall's edge, pulling herself into the shifting shadows while the darkness writhed and twisted, grappling fiercely to hold her back. Finding herself on a narrow ledge, she spotted a door, partly ajar, trembling as if something on the other side fought to break through. "Stay with me!" she screamed. But the laughter grew louder, underscoring the shift in energy. They were losing ground. She lunged again, grappling with the specters trying to drag her back into despair. A flash of light sparked again, illuminating a path through the nightmare. Suddenly, as if the house held breath, all fell silent, tension hung thick in the air, but from the shadows, she sensed the presence of something ancient, guarding the passage. The cold sweat trickled down her back as she took another step, inching closer to the door that promised escape or further entrapment. "What do you desire?" whispered a guttural voice, curling through the air, echoing her deepest fears. In that moment, she felt it, a burning choice before her, an intersection of light and shadow. Would she find freedom, or would the darkness reclaim her, adding her regret to its eternal bone-chilling collection? "What are you willing to sacrifice?" the voice growled, inviting her into an ominous pact as the door creaked wider. Her heart thundered. She had to know. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for the door. What awaited her on the other side could either shatter her or illuminate a path she never knew existed. The door seemed to gasp as it swung open, a breath from the other side threatening to engulf her. A darkness folded like velvet, alive with sinister energy. At that moment, Sarah hesitated, every fiber of her being screaming for her to retreat. But the sound of Ethan's frightened voice pierced through her fear, stronger than the shadows that clawed at her heels. "Mommy!" His cry echoed again, a desperate plea ricocheting off the walls. With a surge of resolve, she stepped through the threshold. The weight of the void shifted, a visceral cold wrapping around her like a shroud. And in an instant, she was no longer on that narrow ledge but in a room swathed in murky twilight. Her heart raced as she glanced around. The walls pulsed with a living darkness, thick and suffocating. The air was stifling, heavy like the blanket of fog that lies before a storm. Ethan and Julie were nowhere in sight, but the potent energy of their presence thrummed beneath the surface. They were close, trapped in the same web of horror that imprisoned her. "Stay brave," she whispered to herself, her own voice barely echoing back. The unsettling shadows spiraled around her, shifting and coiling, whispering her name like a lover's croon that turned sour. "Seek the truth," the whispers danced, blending into one cacophonous hum. Clenching her fists, she pushed through the inertia of dread. Memories pulsed behind her eyes, her mother's voice, once comforting, now a reminder of her deepest wounds. "You're safe now," it hissed, a deceptive lullaby. No. She fought the urge to turn back, knowing the warmth of safety was a mirage. She had to find the children, had to break this cycle that threatened to swallow her whole. Pushing deeper into the murky gloom, she felt the structure of the room bending and shifting, like a massive beast, breathing in and out. The floor below her felt unsteady, as if ready to splinter apart. Each creak amplified the dread clenching her gut, then she heard it, a soft thumping sound, rhythmic and insistent. Her heart nearly stopped. It was coming from behind a door at the far end of the room, nearly engulfed in shadow. "Ethan? Julie?" She called out, her voice trembling, the thumping quickened, matching the wild thrum of her heart. Emotions collided within her: fear, anger, desperation. She forced both feet to move toward the door, each step a monumental struggle against the weight of the dark. "Help us." Another voice, small and pleading, clawed through the suffocating silence. It was unmistakably Ethan. "Hold on. I'm coming." She shouted back, her voice sharper now with purpose. The door loomed closer, and in its wood grain, she saw faces twisting in agony, distorted by shadows of fear. As she reached for the knob, its surface was impossibly hot. She flinched but resisted the urge to pull away. "I won't let fear take them." She screamed against the rising tide of dread clawing at her mind. She twisted the knob, and the door creaked open. A blinding light erupted from within, forcing her back. Ethan's laughter twinkled in the air, sweet yet tinged with an ominous foreboding. The light dimmed, revealing a chaotic scene. Ethan stood in a room filled with dark, writhing shadows, flickering like dying embers. Julie's small frame trembled against the floor, overshadowed by towering figures that blocked her escape. "Mommy!" they cried, their voices mingling with the shadows, desperate and pleading now, tainted with fear. "No. I won't let you take them." Sarah's presence ignited with fury, the moments of doubt fueling her need to protect her children. But the figures loomed closer, elongating towards her. She felt their icy tendrils wrap around her ankles, threatening to pull her down. The world spun as she fought the grip of despair, her own heartbeat pounding louder than the chaos around her. How far was she willing to go to save her kids? The shadows whispered the answer: everything. The temperature dropped, chilling her bones, and the shadows spoke, wrapping themselves tighter. "What will you sacrifice?" "Not my children," Sarah yelled, as the room erupted in screams. Her children, trapped between two realities. As the darkness thickened, she saw a path behind the swirling entities. A trail etched with light promised escape, but it also glimmered with unspeakable horrors. Behind her, the door creaked ominously, ready to close. In that fateful moment, Sarah's mind raced. Would she step into the light, or plunge deeper into the shadows, forever lost in the darkness? The choice stood heavy in the air, ready to unravel the very fabric of her reality. What was waiting on the other side? The darkness roared around her, demanding her attention as it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Sarah could almost hear it laughing, taunting her as she stood frozen, a mere breath away from the light that flickered enticingly. The figures in the room shifted, their shadows lengthening, distorting, merging into grotesque shapes that warped the very essence of fear. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice tore through her, and she lunged toward the light, desperation fueling every movement. The chill intensified, wrapping around her throat like a noose as she fought against the haunting whispers. "Step into the light," they coaxed, their tones sweet yet laced with malevolence. "Let go of your burdens. It's time to join us no. She shouted, battling the grips of confusion clouding her mind. She felt a tug at her heart, a desperate instinct encouraging her to abandon the fleeting hope of rescue. She would not be swayed, the shadows around her shimmered as if in reaction to her resistance. It was a collective, angry growl that cascaded into the corners, an echoing reminder of how close she was to crossing an irreversible threshold. The figures shifted, revealing faces twisted in heartbreak, searching eyes filled with torment that reminded her of lost souls. Help! Julie's small voice fell like a stone, drawing Sarah back to the moment. She pressed forward, the door behind her creaking ominously. Instinct screamed at her, but she could not lose her children to the dark that swirled, eagerly licking the edges of sanity. In that blinding light, Sarah saw hope and horror coiled together like serpents. The moment she entered, something inside her shifted. A pit opened within her, drawing her deeper into the unknown. The light flickered once more, casting the room in a divine glow, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. But as quickly as the hope appeared, the darkness clawed back, dampening the air around her. "Mommy, please don't leave us." Ethan's voice snapped her back, piercing the thick veil of despair. "I'm here, my love," she promised, gritting her teeth, pushing against the invisible force keeping her from reaching him. In one torrid rush, she surged forward, heart racing as she grabbed Ethan's hand. The grip was solid, warm, a fleeting reassurance in the deception of these dark shadows. But where was Julie? Panic flared and bloomed through her veins. Sarah could see her daughter, curled into a ball, shielded by those twisted entities. Time slowed. The shadows lunged, tendrils reaching for Sarah, trying to separate her from her son. "No!" she screamed, the sound raw with desperation. With a fierce tug, she pulled Ethan close as she launched herself toward Julie, wrapping her arms around both children. The moment her body connected with theirs, the room convulsed, a violent shudder that cracked the foundation of their nightmare. The shadows recoiled, snarling, their twisted forms battling against the three figures huddled together. "Stay close!" Sarah cried, shielding her children with fierce resolve. The warmth of their presence steadied her, grounding her within the chaos. "The light!" Ethan shouted as the specters closed in, the monstrous shapes swirling like black smoke around them. "Follow me." She turned sharply, and they stumbled together toward the fading light, the doorway pulsing with hope and agony. The ground trembled beneath them, threatening to swallow them whole if they dared stray too far from its embrace, but the darkness was relentless. A howl erupted, its breath icy and malevolent. It swept towards them, clawing at their heels as if trying to tear away their sanity. She could feel Julie and Ethan's grip tightening, their fear magnified against the encroaching doom. "We need to run," Sarah yelled. But as they neared the light, the ground bucked, sending them sprawling into a mass of shadows, thin, whispering voices pressing against them, urging her to turn back. The air thickened like tar, stifling her resolve, pulling her towards the swirling depths. Her heart hammered in her chest, the shadows were closing in, scraping against her skin like jagged glass. "I want to let you hurt them," she screamed, but the words felt weak against the rising tide of despair. With one final effort, she thrust her hand through the light, feeling its warmth envelop her like a blanket. "Together!" she shouted, hoping it would heal the rift between them and the horrors lurking behind. But the light flickered again, the darkness groaning, ready to push them back into the hopeless void. What would they face next, as the walls of reality threatened to collapse? What secrets were hidden within the shadows that yearned to be discovered? As Sarah lunged toward the light, her heart raced in desperate rhythm. Every instinct screamed against the dark, every whisper pulling her back with icy fingers. She felt it drawing nearer, teasing, biting like a swarm of angry wasps. "Mommy, hurry!" Ethan's voice echoed like a bell, jolting her back to focus. She could see the flicker strengthen, but it was an illusion, a taunt wrapped in false hope. With a fierce resolve, they stumbled forward, her grip on both children tightening, anchoring them against the tide of shadows pressing in from all sides. The figures around them transformed into grotesque caricatures, mouths twisted into impossibly wide grins, eyes glowing with malicious hunger. "Stay close," she gasped, urging them onward, each step feeling like wading through a quagmire. The light ebbed and flowed, now pulsating like a heartbeat, urging them to break free. Yet, every inch pushed them deeper into a realm where notions of safety dulled. Suddenly, Julia let out a terrified shout. A shadow darted too close, tendrils snaking around her ankle, pulling hard. "Help me!" she cried, voice trembling like leaves in a storm. "Julie!" Sarah shrieked, fury lighting within her. She released Ethan for a split second, diving toward her daughter. The chasm of shadows yawned wider, an insatiable maw hungry for their warmth. With a primal scream of defiance, she yanked Julie free, feeling the child's weight settle back into her arms. She wheeled around, Ethan at her side, the warm touch of his hand sending a jolt of strength surging through her veins. "Look!" Ethan pointed toward the curling edges of the light, where shadows tried to grasp at the escaping rays, failing as if scalded. "We have to go now." Together, they sprinted toward the shimmering threshold, but as they moved, the ground trembled, thudding beneath them with deep, unsettling growls. Crystals of darkness splintered, scattering like fragments of shattered glass, revealing faces within. Faces that twisted and writhed with pain, mouths opening, revealing teeth like dark cliffs ready to devour. "Run!" Sarah shouted, forcing her legs to move faster, heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. They rushed toward the light, sound barely audible over the howls of despair. The shadows clawed at them, pulling at their clothes, fingers sharp as knives brushing against their skin. "No!" she screamed, a wild desperation filling her throat. "We will not be taken." Just when they thought they reached safety, the light pulsed menacingly, flickering as if it were a dying star. Shadows roared in fury, coiling back to strike. Sarah stumbled, and in that moment, the ground beneath them split, a dark chasm widening, threatening to swallow all hope. Every inch felt like a battle against a tide that threatened to pull her under. "Keep holding on." But everything shifted. The children's grip weakened, and with horror, she saw their faces flicker, each one caught between terror and something darker, something inviting. "They're coming, Mommy." Julie whimpered, tears streaking her cheeks. "Make them stop." The world around them pulsed, flickering between dimensions too twisted to comprehend. A scream of urgency rose, echoed by the deep, distorted laughter of the shadows. Then, one by one, the shadows began morphing. Formless nightmares twisted into something more solid, more familiar, faces she recognized from her past, lost loved ones swallowed by the shadows. "Join us," they whispered, and inside her, a seed of doubt began to sprout. What if surrendering was the only way to protect her children? Ethan looked up at her, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Where are we going?" She hesitated, battling the urge to turn back, the darkness wrapping around her like a shroud. What price would she pay for their safety? As the children clung to her, another growl reverberated through the air, shaking the very foundation of their reality. Just then, the light flickered brightly, blinding them momentarily. In that distraction, dark tendrils lashed out like whips, making contact with Sarah's skin. She cried out as pain seared through her, her resolve wavering. This was no ordinary darkness. It beckoned with promises of safety wrapped in silk, whispering secrets of power and the thrill of letting go. No. She wouldn't let it take her, but the shadows were narrowing, the chasm widening, and as they stepped back, something whispered within her, seductive and dark. Her body trembled, caught in the magnetic pull of their sinister embrace. Would she join the lost souls or fight against the night with everything she had? In that crucial moment, as shadows gathered to claim them, the light flickered again, uncertain, testing their will. Would they breach the borders of their nightmare or be consumed entirely by the waiting darkness? The truth loomed, and they were left on the precipice of a choice that haunted the edges of their sanity. What lay beyond the light, and could they survive the ultimate sacrifice? The light sputtered, and Sarah's breath quickened as she clutched her children tightly. The tendrils drew back slightly, sensing their hesitation, but the shadows pulsed around them, hungry and eager. Would they really break through, or would they be trapped forever in this twisted reality? "Mommy," Julie whimpered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm scared." A glance down showed Sarah that her daughter's tiny fists were turning white from the grip she maintained on her mother's shirt. Ethan's hand trembled in her clutch, and in that moment, she felt completely powerless. A snarling sound erupted, shaking them as the ground quaked beneath their feet. It was a growl, deep and ancient, a sound that seemed to resonate within her very bones. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to gather her thoughts despite the suffocating dread curling around her heart. "Focus, Sarah," she whispered to herself, forcing the words through clenched teeth. "We can do this." She pushed forward, carving through the thick, discordant air weighing down on them. The light flickered furiously, illuminating the grotesque faces in the shadows briefly. For mere seconds, she caught a glimpse of souls that twisted in agony, their mouths opening as if to scream, yet no sound escaped. "Keep moving." Sarah spat, and they stumbled forward as a new heaviness bore down. Just when she thought they cleared the threshold, she heard it whispers snaking through the air. Soft, soothing voices, beckoning her with promises of ease and safety. "Sarah," one voice murmured, so familiar it sent ice shivers along her spine. "You know you're too weak to carry them. Join us," another hissed, spinning threads of temptation that wrapped tighter around her mind. They promised unity, stability, and a bright light, an endless glow devoid of pain and struggle. "No!" she shouted. The resolve burned in her chest. The path to safety felt dangerously close, but she refused to yield. She couldn't abandon her children. She wouldn't. With renewed strength, she twisted, pulling her children closer. "I'm not leaving you. I will not give in." The shadows recoiled slightly as if stung, and she sensed their anger boiling behind. The light flickered again, revealing the treacherous landscape ahead. She could see where the shadows writhed, a coiling darkness waiting hungrily to ensnare them again. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his voice quavered, piercing through the chaos as she whipped her gaze back to the children. "What do we do now?" She could feel the weight of their fears, pressing down like heavy stones. In that moment, time slowed, giving her a chance for clarity. A flicker of determination ignited within her. She had to fight. "It's going to be okay. Trust me," Sarah said, trying to infuse courage into her voice even though her insides twisted with dread. They stepped forward toward the scant glow, but the moment did not last. Without warning, a force slammed against her back, knocking them forward. The ground quaked with a furious roar. Sarah stumbled and instinctively shielded her children, but darkness blasted through, tendrils ensnaring her limbs, seeking to pull her into the void. "No!" She writhed against their grip, a raw fear clawing at her throat, a mix of terror and the longing to surrender to the darkness embrace. Around them, shadows swooped in closer, and the air thickened with their mantra, "Join us, stay with us, embrace the night." The light before them pulsed brighter, like a beacon in a storm, but she could feel the compulsion swell within her, a seductive promise that dangled just out of reach. "Stay with me, stay together," Sarah yelled, summoning every ounce of strength. As if sensing her ferocity, the shadows screeched, the combined sound crashing like waves, drowning out her thoughts. For a moment, she felt herself slipping, her own will fading. What if surrender were the only way? What if this darkness wasn't the end, but a new beginning? With a violent surge, she pushed forward, breaking free just enough to reach toward the light. The children hung on to her tightly, but their presence felt tenuous. And fear laced into her resolve, but then she saw it, the way out flickering like a fading star, more fragile with every inch they moved. "Mommy," Ethan's voice quivered, almost a plea, but she couldn't answer, trapped between fighting for them and succumbing to the shadows. As the darkness resumed its tight grip, everything threatened to unravel. Would they cross over into the unknown, or lose themselves in the suffocating embrace of despair? A countdown began in her mind, each second more heavy with the echoes of laughter and temptation. What lay ahead was uncertain. But whether it was salvation or the ultimate sacrifice was a question that trembled dangerously close. Would they find their way back, or would the shadows finally claim their souls? The tendrils tugged harder, their cold touch digging into Sarah's flesh, drawing her back into the clutches of nightmare. Panic surged through her veins, sharpening her senses. This was no mere darkness. It was alive, pulsating with a desire that sent tremors of dread coursing through her body. She turned, the children's faces pale in the dim flicker of the light. "Close your eyes," she commanded. The shadows hissed in response, creeping ever closer, whispering promises that twisted her gut. "You can't fight us. You will join us." The voices swirled, wrapping around her words, each syllable laced with foreboding. Her heart thundered, desperation gnawed at her resolve. "Mommy." Julie's voice broke, filled with tears. "I don't want to go into the dark." "Neither do I." Sarah spat through clenched teeth as she felt the shadows tightening around her limbs. She needed to stay strong. They had no choice but to push forward. But how? The light flickered again, and in that moment of illumination, she saw a twisted figure lurking in the shadows. "Run!" she screamed, the fear slipping out in a shriek that shattered her own resolve. With one swift motion, Sarah yanked Ethan and Julie away from the grasping darkness, desperately dragging them toward the light. They stumbled, nearly losing their footing as her heart raced faster than ever. The figure stepped into the beam of light, revealing a face marred by despair, cracked and hollow. It wasn't human, yet it bore a haunted resemblance to someone Sarah had known long ago. "Stay with us, Sarah," it rasped, its tongue flicking like a snake. "You're nothing without us. Get away!" she shouted. She clung to her children even tighter, trying to shield them from the horror before her. "Mommy, look out!" Ethan cried, his voice sliced through the clamor. Sarah turned just in time to see dark claws lurch toward her, seeking to snare them all back into the abyss. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah leaped to the side, barely evading the grasp, but the force jarred Ethan. He fell, hands splayed on the ground, eyes wide with terror. "Help me!" he screamed, reaching toward her as the shadows rippled, tantalizingly close. "Ethan!" The sight was unbearable. She could feel the weight of the shadows dragging at her as they beckoned. Jessie's small body trembled as she crouched beside her brother. "Don't let go!" Sarah yelled, pulling both children close, desperately trying to lift them back to their feet. "Mommy!" Julie squealed, her tiny voice breaking into the night. The tendrils twitched, caught between fury and submission. They twisted in an almost snake-like manner, weaving in and out, as if they were alive and having their own struggle. The room shuddered, confirming what Sarah feared most. "It's going to collapse," she cried. They were trapped in this hell, each second becoming more precarious. "Look!" Julie tugged on her mother's arm, pointing toward the farthest edge of light. It was faint, almost vapor-like, but it was there. "We can run there. Hold my hand," she shouted, and without thinking, they sprung forward. The shadows recoiled, but not before another wave crashed against them, cold and suffocating. It felt like cement against her skin, pressing down, dragging them back as silence enveloped them like a shroud. Sarah fought against it, every fiber of her being screamed against losing her children. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice broke through, urgent and sharp, as he tugged desperately at her sleeve, pulling her with what little strength he had left. "I don't want to be here anymore." Then there was a monstrous roar, as if the darkness itself was alive and angry. It surged forward, tendrils rushing like a river, desperate to claim them. "No!" Sarah bellowed, drawing on every ounce of maternal strength, and she surged forward, fighting against the cold, pulling her children toward that flicker of light. But what if it was just a mirage? Just as they reached the threshold, that beacon of hope started to flicker, waning under the onslaught of the shadows. Would they be released or swallowed whole? Keep going. We're almost there. But doubt seeped into her thoughts like poison. Behind them, a voice cackled, haunting and echoing. You can save one, but at what cost? A chill washed over Sarah as the beacon began to fade, and she realized with dawning horror that their fate hinged on a terrible choice. What would she risk? The question hung heavy in the air, mingling with the encroaching darkness, and it terrified her. Could she truly save them all, or would one of them be lost forever? The flicker of the light waned, casting deeper shadows and uncertainty into the already suffocating abyss. Sarah's heart raced as the shadows lunged back. The room grew darker, the air grew colder, and despair wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. You can save one. The mocking voice echoed in her ears, twisting the air as if daring her to make a choice. No. She wouldn't choose. She couldn't. I won't give you my children. She spat into the darkness, determination fueling her furious cry. With each word, she felt a spark of courage reignite within her. The room trembled, shadows recoiling as though her voice had power. Mommy. Ethan's desperate plea sent fresh waves of electric dread through her, but it also ignited a fierce resolve. She had fought too hard, she had endured too much. She wasn't going to let the darkness steal her children, no matter the cost. She grabbed both Ethan and Julie, holding their warm hands firmly in hers. Together. She shouted, pushing against the engulfing blackness that threatened her. She propelled them toward that flickering light, the sanctuary they desperately needed. The shadows screeched around them, a cacophony of anger and fear, recoiling as if stung each time she asserted her love. Mommy, the shadows! Julie cried, her voice trembling. They're coming. I know, baby, but we have to move. Sarah shouted, her voice cracking with urgency. The light pulsed brighter, as if responding to her determination. But doubt clawed at her mind, would they ever really be free? They stumbled forward, but the darkness writhed hungrily. Tendrils of shadow lashed out, biting into her skin like icy whips, dragging her back. No! Sarah gritted her teeth, summoning every ounce of will to push through the suffocating fear that enveloped them. It was now or never. Ethan, hold on tight. Julie, stay close. She commanded, feeling raw adrenaline pump through her veins. The shadows loomed large, eager to reclaim them. She barely noticed the pain, focusing all her energy on moving forward. In that moment, she found clarity. The love for her children created a fiery resolve that ignited deep within her. We will not fall. She screamed. With a single thought, she charged against the tidal wave of darkness, pulling her children close, forming an unbreakable bond. As they lunged toward the light, the shadows recoiled, twisted and angry. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating their path for just a heartbeat. Sarah caught a glimpse of the faces in the shadows, horrors that mirrored her own pain, lost regret swirled in those hollow eyes. But this time, she wouldn't let it claim her. Embrace the light. She shouted, and they pushed through. The blinding brilliance surged into their bones, vibrant and warm. It called out to them, where oppression faded into whispers of forgotten fears. Mommy. Ethan's voice rang clear, filled with steel determination. Stay right with me. Sarah gasped as they collectively dove into the brilliant radiance. The moment they crossed, darkness howled, wailing in rage. But that sound quickly faded into nothingness, replaced by a soothing warmth that embraced them fully. With a sudden jolt, Sarah crashed into a wall, hardwood beneath her palms, no longer the grip of shadow but the sturdy surface of their now familiar living room. The autumn breeze flowed through an open window, washing over her in a gentle caress. Dappled sunlight spilled into the room like liquid gold, light dancing off the walls. Chaos had turned into calm. Ethan and Julie were safe. They both sprawled across the carpet, wide-eyed, taking in the sudden shift. Relief flooded Sarah's heart, heavy tears spilled down her cheeks. She had done it, they had escaped, together. Mommy. Julie blinked, confusion fading into elation. It's over, Sarah breathed, pulling them close, gasping through emotions that clawed at her throat, but even in the light, a shadow loomed at the corner of her mind, a memory of whispers that promised to linger, reminding her of the darkness she had faced. With her heart now heavy and fierce, she cradled her children tighter, wanting desperately to shield them forever. Promise me, she whispered, eyes flickering between her sweet children, that we'll always face the dark together. We will not let it pull us apart. And as they cuddled tightly, a newfound resolve rooted itself deep within her. They would confront any shadows that dared to encroach on their lives again, continue to fight together even in the darkest times, for their bond illuminated courage where the shadows would try to creep in. As the afternoon light filtered through their windows and laughter began to bubble up, she knew the burdens of the past would never fully disappear. Yet now, equipped by love, they could carve their own way forward together, side by side. This was Renewal, a promise unbroken. If you enjoyed this wild ride, you need to subscribe to the channel right now. Don't miss out on the exclusive stories that are on the way. Trust me, you'll want them. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us keep this community growing. Flood the comments section, tell me your reactions, your theories, and how you felt about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who love thrilling tales like this. Your support is what keeps this channel alive, and only the truest fans understand how important that is.